Hey everybody, welcome back to the Percy Jackson Upside In podcast. This is going to be my review for the final episode of season 2. So far, I've really been enjoying this season, and I was excited for the finale because I wanted to see what we were gonna learn and discover. So, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. The episode starts actually with a flashback of young Thalia, Annabeth, and Luke and Grover on their way to the camp. And then they're met by the Furies, and then it kind of just cuts off. But Thalia tells Luke to take Annabeth back to camp and protect her, and she's gonna stay and fight the Furies, or so we think. And you can kind of tell like Luke doesn't want to do that, but he does because he really respects Thalia, and like he said that they had been together for like 2 years fighting their way, and whereas Annabeth was only there for a few months, right? So he really respects Thalia, and so he, does what she says. He takes Annabeth back to camp, and that's why he wants to protect her so much, right? And that's also why he wants to also maybe heal the tree and bring Thalia back, right? So that they can be the trio again, and so that he could show her he did, I think he thinks that Thalia would be on his side because she hated Zeus so much. And we don't really know why she hates Zeus, but she does. Because they all hate the gods, right? So then we pick up with Sally driving the crew back to camp, and they're met by Blackjack. And he tells Percy that Clarice never made it to camp because the giants are there and they're fighting their way through. And then there's like a nice little moment between Percy and his mom where like Sally's like, I'm going with you. And Percy's like, no, you can't come with us. And, he reminds her, what happened last time where he had to watch her, get taken by the Minotaur. And, you could tell, like, he can't go through that again. And so it's a really nice little moment between Sally and Percy. And he opens up, about the Thalia thing and the prophecy. And so, I think she understands. So that's all we get for Sally, but I really did like the little bit that we did get with Sally from last episode and this episode. So I like what they're doing with her character. So then we cut to Tantalus giving like some type of like remembrance speech or something to the campers while they're like cleaning up the chariot race still. I'm not sure. And then like Chris Rodriguez comes in and is like, hey, you're an idiot. They're attacking the camp. We need to send more troops. And Tantalus is an idiot. And he gets hit by a fireball from the giants. And, I guess I just don't like this version of Tantalus. I don't like it. It's not the Tantalus from the books. It's too comedic for me. I don't know what we're doing with him. He doesn't look like the Tantalus from the books. I just don't like what we're doing with this version of Tantalus here. So thank God he's gone. And we don't have to deal with him anymore. But, it's kind of, we are picking up back with Chris Rodriguez, so, keep that in mind. And so then Luke and Allison Sims and his crew, they show up to camp, and Percy and them are, like listening to their plan, but also Tyson was, listening in from farther away and, using his mimic voice to tell them what was going on. But so Percy questions, why Annabeth would still trust Thalia and why she thinks she would be on her side, and it's like, well, she was my friend, and Percy's like, yeah, but she was also Luke's friend, and, Luke's friend for a lot longer than she was friends with Annabeth, and so, he's like, you don't know, which side she would be on, and, you don't know what it's like to have to choose between your friends, right? And, it's a little ironic because she does know. She's been choosing between Percy and Luke this whole time, right? So it's kind of an interesting little scene. And then, they're met by some other campers, I think. And it's kind of cool that we're getting, all these campers everywhere. We're getting, introduced to a couple different campers. And everybody's, in their battle armor and they're trying to protect camp. And so I really like that. We're getting the sense of the Camp Half-Blood and the campers and their role in all of this also, right? And so Percy goes to Dionysus, who's, they say is now in charge because Tantalus is gone, and Dionysus is, singing Kumbaya or something, whatever. He's, playing a guitar. I also don't really care for this version of Dionysus either. I like the actor, so I don't know what we're doing with Dionysus, but he doesn't want to believe Percy and about, the Kronos thing. And so Percy gives like an empowering speech to the campers to like get them to fight back and stand up for the camp. I don't know why any of the campers trust Percy either, but they do. So then Clarice is met by Chris Rodriguez and his crew, and Chris turns out to be a traitor, like we thought. He's playing it pretty good though. Like, he kind of, tries to trick Clarice by saying, oh, this other camper, Katie, oh, she's the traitor. But then, like, he reveals himself, and he and Clarice, like, fight on the chariot grounds, and, he tells them, she's, it was a mistake thinking that they were ever friends. And, poor Clarice, like, right? Like, he had to have known she had, like, a crush on him, and, like, he definitely was using that, to his advantage. And then, so I don't know if they're going to end up being in a relationship like they are in the books, because I don't know if you can come back from that line he told her. Like, he portrayed her pretty good. Why would you still have a crush on this dude after he's like, yeah, we were never friends, and I, like, betrayed you and stabbed you or something. Or I guess he stabbed Katie or whatever. So, yeah, he has his turn finally. I don't know if they're going to... I don't know what they're going to do. They're definitely taking some liberties from the books. Maybe she and Chris don't ever get together in this version. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to find out. Or maybe they will. Maybe she'll end up forgiving him eventually. Who knows? But then Grover and Annabeth come in on the chariot to rescue her. And she's like, yeah, I do have friends. And so it's kind of a nice moment for Clarice in that she has finally made some friends with... Percy and Annabeth and, to a lesser extent, Tyson and Grover. And then we see, like, Luke, like, with his sword, like, opening the barrier to let a few of the giants in. And, like, he says his name. And I saw there was some, like, confliction online about how to pronounce his name. And apparently nobody knows how to pronounce his name. So they just kind of came up with their own way to pronounce his name. He says Castellan. I always thought it was Castellan? I always thought it was like Castellan or something. Castellan. But whatever, he says Castellan, so that's what we're going with. And then Percy and the other campers come up in their battle armor, which is really just kind of some plated armor underneath on top of their orange Camp Half-Blood shirts. But it still looks pretty cool. I think some of them have helmets and stuff. And so Percy and his army come in, and they go to fight Luke and Luke's army. Which there's a couple of giants also in Luke's army, which I think Tyson probably could handle maybe the giants a bit better than the regular campers. But then, of course, leads to, Luke calling out Percy, and so they fight, and Luke's, like, not holding his punches back at all. Like, he literally starts punching Percy in the face. Like, Percy's, like, bleeding and everything, and then, like, Tyson comes in with his battle armor and the trident, and he looks super awesome, and he's kind of, like, saves Percy from... Luke looked like he was going to get, like, a final blow and kill Percy, so, like, thank God for Tyson. And so then Annabeth, Clarice, and Grover come in on the chariot, and they start joining in. Allison Sims shoots Annabeth, like, in the collar with an arrow, and then she immediately starts to, like, cut down Thalia's tree, and so that's, like, the barrier can drop and let the rest of the monsters in. And so Percy has the idea to put the fleece on a spear, and then he hands the spear to Clarice so that she could throw it, because she's probably, it is her quest, he says, but she's also probably, like, better at throwing a spear than he is. And so he says, this is your quest, you throw it. And she kind of questions it. She's like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, it's like the prophecy wasn't you're going to fail, because you don't have friends. You're going to fail unless you have your friends to help you. And that's what we're doing. So Clarice throws the spear and, like, instantly starts healing the tree. And then, like, Thalia, like, basically just, like, emerges out of the tree. And she's, like, saying what she was saying, like, as she was turned into a tree. And then she, like, throws a lightning blast out. And it ends up hitting Percy. And then they both collapse. And so Percy is, like, in this dreamscape world. And he's met by Poseidon. So we finally get our first appearance of Poseidon this season. And so they have a little chat. Percy's like, I've been trying to call out for help and everything. And Poseidon, he tells Percy, I need my son to help me. And then out comes Tyson. Poseidon tells Tyson that he needs him to craft weapons and, like, some old Hephaestus forge under the water. You got to craft the weapons for the war, which is sad because I really do love this version of Tyson that we get here. It's very different from the books. I'm hoping that maybe since we are changing up a lot of things, maybe we can change up Tyson's role. He doesn't really play much of a role in the books going on from here, so maybe we can try to find a way to bring Tyson in a little bit more since we are changing things up from the book anyway. Because I really do enjoy this version of Tyson. I really think he is become the heart of this season, which I know Grover was kind of supposed to be in season 1, but I think Tyson just did it so much better in this season. And I do love the brotherly bond that he and Percy seem to have. And I like Poseidon calling him his son. And so I hope we get more Tyson. And so Poseidon, tells Percy, that his, Percy's like, I can go with you too. And Poseidon's like, no, your fate lies at camp, and with this prophecy and the war that's going to play out. And Percy, he questions that. He says, are you, is the prophecy the only reason that, you even, had me as a son, right? And, Poseidon kind of says, fate is a motive for the gods, but also, another motive is love. Kind of hinting that, like, he did love Sally at one point. I don't know if he was, like, intentionally trying to get Sally pregnant to have a demigod child, or if that, he just, that's what happens when you're in love, maybe, with a god. But I think it's something that Percy definitely needed to hear, to feel like he's not a mistake, and that, like, he, Poseidon doesn't say he loves him, but he can feel, that his father cares about him now. And so then Percy wakes up from this dreamscape in the infirmary, and, Thalia's still, like, passed out, laying next to him. We find out Chiron is back, and back in charge of camp. And then there's, like, a cute little moment where they tell Percy, like, he drools in his sleep, Annabeth and Grover. And it's just kind of, I think it's like a running gag in the books, like, he drools in his sleep. But it's a nice little moment of levity after all of the things that these kids have gone through. I like that we are getting those moments where they're still kids, right? They're going to laugh at some drool. So I do like that. And I do wish we would have gotten to see Chiron and his centaurs charging into battle. But, for budget limits and reasons, they couldn't afford that. They wanted to, but then they were like, yeah, we don't have the budget for that. We barely have the budget for Chiron at all in this series, right? So that is sad. And again, we didn't get to see Percy use his water powers for the son of Poseidon. What's going on here? Like, if you don't have the budget, then why are we doing this show at all? Like, I don't know. Maybe they've already shot season 3. Maybe they got a bigger budget for season 3. We'll see. Percy's got to use his goddamn water powers. Percy has to use his water powers at some point in this series. I guess maybe next season we won't have Tyson. I think maybe the budget for the Cyclops eyes was a lot, maybe, and that took a lot of the CGI work. So maybe since we won't have Tyson next season, maybe we'll get more. I don't know. So then they go to the big house, they meet with Chiron, and Chiron then tells them what really happened the night that Thalia was turned into a tree, because for some reason Chiron was there. And then we get, like, the flashback as he's, like, narrating it. And so Thalia doesn't actually fight the Furies like we were thought she did. They actually get zapped away by Zeus for probably revealing too much information to her about the prophecy, because they were sent by Hades to, like, maybe get her on Hades' side. I don't know. And then we finally get to see Zeus, again, first for the season, played by a different actor. So RP Lance Reddick, who played Zeus in season 1. We get Courtney B. Vance here, and if you can't have Lance Reddick, Courtney B. Vance is a very good replacement. So I like, and this is a little different version of Zeus, but it very much feels like the same character. So he's playing it a little bit softer than Lance Reddick did, but also Lance Reddick was yelling at Percy, and this Zeus is trying to talk nicely to his daughter to get her on his side. So I think it kind of makes sense still. And so he tells her about the prophecy, and she, like, refuses to be a part of it. She's basically like, I'm not here to, like, be a part of your games. I don't want to do that. In fact, I'm just going to go back to camp and grab those 2 that I sent there, and we're going to head back on out. Like, I want nothing to do with you or your world, even though she does seem to love her lightning powers. But so she, yells at him, and he just zaps her into a tree. And so the story that Chiron's been telling people is that she was fought the Furies, and the Furies got her, and she was dying, and so in order to save her life, Zeus turned her into a tree. And here they're doing something different with it, and they're saying he just zapped her into a tree because she wouldn't go along with what he wanted. And I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. That does make Zeus seem really like petty, like he doesn't care about his daughter at all, and that she is just a pawn in his games. Um, yeah, so I don't really like that kind of portrayal, but it's what they did, and and so we got Thalia back anyway. Thalia doesn't want to be his champion, and so Chiron, fears that Kronos wants Thalia to be his champion, which if he did, then you would think he would have told Luke that the fleece could heal her, but he didn't tell Luke that the fleece could heal her. I think because he thinks, I don't know. I think he thinks it's a weakness point for Luke. His care for Thalia maybe is a weak spot. Even though Luke wants Thalia to be his champion for Kronos also. So I don't know. I don't know what Kronos' motives are. I think Kronos wants Percy. Kronos really wants Percy for some reason, even though Percy has told him repeatedly, hell no. But whatever. Thalia is a wild card, so we don't know. I do remember when I read the books, it was a crazy twist that Thalia came back to life, and I was like, holy crap, what are we doing? And then we get into book 3, and they were like, holy crap, what are we doing? So season 3 is going to be really good, I hope. So then Thalia comes in, with her lightning, of course, and she and Annabeth have a little moment of, to reunite. Thalia's obviously a little bit confused, because one moment she's being zapped by her father and turned into a tree, and the next moment she's awake, collapses on the ground, and then wakes up in a new place at camp. Presumably somebody was there to tell her what was going on and what year it was, maybe. But she comes in and she recognizes grown-up Annabeth, and they have a cute little, moment of reuniting, and then, she and Percy have, a stare down, and Percy is, staring her down hard, and, kind of straightens up to look more intimidating. And then it kind of ends with Percy's, voiceover of being like, everybody has dreams, but, my dreams are, staring right at me or something. Or his dreams are nightmares, I don't know. So, then that's just where they end the main episode, actually. But then we do get, a little sneak peek during the mid-credits of Season 3 with Percy and Annabeth at the school dance. And it's kind of a cute little moment for all those Percabeth shippers out there. And then the episode finally ends with an end credit scene back to Cersei's Island, where Cersei's telling the people, you can take the accelerated course that I have to get past the sirens, or whatever she's telling them. And then she brings out, statues of Percy and Annabeth. So I don't know what she told the people of how they got past the sirens, but apparently she's spun it so that it's a new course for her that she can give people, and now she has statues of Percy and Annabeth. It's kind of just a fun, cute little moment and a good callback to that episode, which I really enjoyed that episode, and I really did like that version of this version of Cersei and her island, and so I thought that was kind of a cute moment, and maybe we'll bring back Cersei again in the future if we can. But it's nice to see that we did get one last little moment with Cersei, because I really did enjoy that episode a lot. And that's actually where we end the episode. So, there's a lot going on in this episode. I really enjoyed this finale. I think we could have done more. We could have done more if these episodes, again, were a bit longer. I'm not going to complain, not going to go on my big rant like I normally do. I've seen a lot of other people online also complain, so you guys know these episodes need to be longer. Disney, get your shit together, make these episodes longer. It's kind of just a streaming TV show in general issue going on right now of short seasons and short episodes. It works for some shows, and other shows I don't think it works very well. And this is one of them. Episodes need to be a little bit longer, but there's a lot going on. So we do get Thalia back. I like seeing the backstory of Thalia a lot. I like the lightning effect that we got going on here. It's very electric. I don't know how to describe it. It doesn't quite look just like lightning. It's got a little bit more I don't know, something going on with it. It's really cool though, and I like the sound they make with it. Again, I wish we would have got to see Percy use his water powers. I don't know how, but somehow we need to get him using his water powers. Really, the only time he got to use his powers was in the I think he kind of used them in the Sea of Monsters, but we didn't really see him. It was kind of just him motion controlling the waves or something. but it was so dark you can't see what's going on. And then like the little whirlpools that he was doing in the cups at Cersei's Island, and that's about it. That's about it we got for his water powers. So that kind of sucks. We need more of the powers. We did get to use Annabeth's invisibility cap, I think, quite effectively this season, and I really do enjoy that. And I like the effect that it has actually when they have the invisibility cap. I forgot to mention that last episode when Percy's wearing it. It's like a surrounding effect, like a shimmer going on around them, which is kind of cool. So I like that. Luke, I guess, and his people, they just fled or something. I guess, I don't know, the monsters probably fled too. I don't know if the barrier's still up, if Thalia's tree is no longer there, or if I think the fleece is what creates the barrier now in the books, maybe. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. But Luke and his people, Allison Sims, I think, survived. They left and fled, so we'll see what they're up to next season. So yeah, I guess we didn't really get to wrap up on Luke, but we wrapped up on pretty much all the other characters. Grover really didn't get a whole lot outside of the Polyphemus stuff. We don't really set anything up for Grover. He does say, "Oh, I got my new assignment," to Clarice, who Clarice is now head of some type of camp defense project, whatever, and she offers Percy, a spot, and Grover's like, "I already got an assignment," but he doesn't say, so I don't know. But we wrap up all the other characters, and I think it's a good ending to the show. Season 2 was really good. I really enjoyed Season 2 a lot. This was a pretty good finale. The fight scenes, I think, worked really well. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. It was a good wrap up to a really good season, I think. Season 2 was definitely better than Season 1. Again, there's still some areas that they need to improve upon, I think. But overall, I was really happy with it. Absolutely loved Tyson. Can't praise Tyson enough. The actor does a great job playing Tyson. The visual effects artist did a great job with his one eye. And I saw somebody on, I think it was X, Twitter, mention that the reason I think the Tyson Cyclops looks so good is that he's always in Cyclops mode. Like, we never see him with the two eyes, so it doesn't give us like an alternate reference point for him. So I think that works really well. Anyway, so thank you all for watching the video. Stay tuned to the channel. Definitely going to have more Percy Jackson content. I'll do a Season 2 wrap-up like I did for Season 1, and probably a couple other videos. Maybe go over the monsters and the gods like I did for Season 1 as well. And definitely I'll also be reviewing the book Chalice of the Gods. So stay tuned to the channel for more Percy Jackson content. So subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up button. Thank you all for watching. And until next time, as always, later, Seaweed Rain. Bye.